He is a Bassmaster Elite Series rookie, but he's no rookie. 2 MLF wins, over $1 million in earnings. Dakota Ebare joins me this week on...
I'm Bob Cobb for the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks, and of course, you, my humpers. Happy hump day to all of you, and welcome into the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. This is the 215th edition of the Mercer Podcast, and I thank you for spending a little bit of your week here with this show and our particular brand of tomfoolery. I hope you are having a wonderful week, and I thank you all for tuning in week after week. Moment of total honesty. As you watch this, God willing, I am not sitting here. I am elbows deep in smallmouth bass, hopefully. Away shooting shows, upcoming episodes of Facts of Fishing, and got a big week planned this week. So let's hope that the fish gods open their bounty to us. Because one thing is guaranteed. No matter what you're fishing for, you put a camera in a boat and it gets a lot tougher. So send some good vibes out to the universe. Hopefully we are wrecking them. It's going to be a fun podcast. I easily could have just been like, hey, gone fishing. Sorry, can't help you out. But I've told you guys, if you're committed to come here every Wednesday, I'm committed to be here every single Wednesday. And we have a great show for you here this week. Dakota Ebare is our guest, and Dakota is an amazing angler, an amazing human being. I mean, a former bullfighter, came out of the gates swinging in a big way at MLF, has multiple wins there, over $1 million in earnings, and then risked it all and said, hey, I want to fish the Bassmaster Opens to qualify for the Elite Series because it is my dream to fish the Bassmaster Classic. And I am all about people who chase dreams. So this will be a fun show. It'll be a very interesting show because this podcast has always been a platform. And I've always said anglers are free to come on here and talk about whatever they want. And we have had a lot of anglers come on here and talk about how they don't like forward-facing sonar. Well, we're starting to hear the opposite from some anglers. We're starting to, all of a sudden now that, there's a chance that it may be limited, we're hearing more and more anglers coming out and saying, hey, wait a second, slow down. And Dakota is one of those. He makes some very good points. And no matter where you sit on the fence, whether you're for forward-facing sonar, against forward-facing sonar, or if you're just tired of hearing about forward-facing sonar, what Dakota says here this week is said with passion, belief, and from his heart. And I think you'll find it very, very interesting. But rather than me building it up, let's have a very real and a very cool conversation with Dakota Ebare. Dakota Ebare, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. I feel like always feel weird at the beginning of these because we have actually been talking for a little while, and then I'm like, we're going to record now. Now I have to act somewhat professional.
They done missed all the good stuff. So
yeah.
No, it's good, man. I just got back home today. Flew up to Michigan. Got some unique business opportunities coming that I'm really excited about, but spent all day in meetings yesterday up there, and it was fun, man. It really was. It was nice to get out of the heat for a day, and now we're back home, ready to rock and roll, get on the water, and get ready for 10 killer.
Isn't it wild when you get in the air and it's like it's not hot? Like when I got home from Texas, I was in my backyard, and I'm like, it is so weird to feel a breeze that isn't hot. Like it's just refreshing.
Well, what's crazy, man, is that like you leave here, and you like time jump back 2-3 months. Like all of a sudden, there's turkey strutting everywhere, and it's springtime. Everything's just blooming. Like it's like, it's just crazy. It's so wild. Like you go back, it feels like 2 months in time, and it's pretty refreshing, honestly.
For a big part of the season, that's how I feel. But the opposite, where I'm down in Florida at an event for 2 weeks, and things are great. And then I come home and I'm like, oh, there's still snow. It still sucks.
I guess unfortunately for me, I don't usually ever have to see it that way. Like it's always refreshing for me to go back up north. Whereas for you at times, it's still frozen tundra.
Yeah. So this year has been tough on you. I mean, seemingly from the outside, it looks like up to this point, your fishing career has gone pretty freaking smooth, but the elites, not so much.
Yeah, man, they gave me a wake up call. I got a little taste of humility, and honestly, I struggled a little bit last year in the Open. So this has probably been 2 years in the running of me kind of getting to the point where I'm at right now, I'd say. But there's a lot of dialogue context behind that. And I think I have a pretty good grasp on that now at this point. And I'm actually kind of thankful for that. Like, it has been a disaster season for me, really, on paper for me, like in my mind. But I've reached a point where, I feel like everyone, no matter what you're doing in life, whether you're a baseball player, a football player, you're a carpenter, a realtor, an MC, at some point in time, you might have had an off event where you're like, dude, I kind of sucked up there today.
Lots.
We don't see it because you're always just Mercer. But honestly, and so I think those times in your life, they kind of give you a unique perspective that sometimes you need. And I feel like I'm at that point where, I realize that, look, man, this sport is turning fast. There's so much young talent that's coming up so fast. And contrary to a lot of people, I feel like I'm excited about that because that's going to push me to get better, And I see, we see all the negative, all the negativity towards all the young anglers coming up because they don't fish the right way or this or that. But in reality, I think it's a great opportunity for the sport to grow. And you take me as an example of that. I'm 32 years old. I've been fishing really good, but man, it seems like I'm honest enough to say I kind of slacked off a little bit over the last year or so, just working at the trade, just getting busy with other things. And it didn't take but just a little bit of time. And all of a sudden, bam, like these guys are getting so good so fast, they'll pass you up in a heartbeat. So it's been good for me to kind of be able to take a step back and say, dang, I really got to get my ass back to work. And so that's the way I'm taking it. I'm taking it with, positivity, trying to at least, and knowing that, hey, look, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of my career. It's just been a tough couple of events, and it's going to make us better down the road.
How do you do what's so rare? That is rare for, it's real easy for somebody in your situation to not look at it the way you do.
Well, I didn't look at it that way after day 2 at Fork. Like, I did, but you didn't want to ask me about it. I was mad. Like, I was mad. Like, I wouldn't want to be nowhere around me. It's been a few weeks. It's been a couple weeks since the day 3 at Sabine where I didn't catch a bass. So, and it's been like so crazy though. Like, I had a 2-day Toyota Series event here at Rayburn. I'm leading by like 9 pounds going into day 3. I had 62 pounds in 2 days. And both the first 2 days of that tournament went so well. Like, I was so dialed, like I knew where to go, when to go there, and it all just fell perfectly into place. And on day 3, I catch 10 pounds and I lose, and then you take Fork, having a really good first day, bombing on day 2, having a really good tournament at Sabine, bombing on day 3. It's almost like, and then watching live the next day and seeing guys catch them off the individual piece of structure that I fished. It's like, man, sometimes things are just out of our control, and it's not really like you can either do one or two things. You can completely let it train wreck you, or you can look at it from a positive perspective and say, hey, what am I going to do about it? And that's when I kind of go into the whole Cam Hanes things. Nobody cares. Work harder. That's his whole deal. He's and to me, that's what stands out. It's like, look, man, you ain't got nobody to blame but you. Like, I'm in total control of my work ethic and what I do to prepare for these events. And if I'm not having success on the water, I'm to blame. So I have to go do a better job. And that's just the way I look at it. It's the way I'm going to look at it. And it does take a little time to get that perspective because you may be madder than hell in the moment. or for maybe a couple days, and you should be as a competitor. But you've got to be realistic and know that tough times are going to come, and how you respond to those tough times, I think, is really what makes an individual.
I don't think I've ever asked you this, but why did you feel the need to move to the elites? Because to be honest, I mean, things going really well for you. Like, what drove you to say, hey, I want to fish the elites?
Yeah, I look like a dummy right now, you know. But I say that jokingly because I'm not in a bad spot, or anything like that. There's not. Look, man, if you're fishing at the professional level in the sport and you're doing good things for the companies that you work for, you're not in a bad spot, right? But obviously, yeah, things were going great for me at the Elite Series. I mean, at the Bass Pro Tour. I was able to really do a good job for the companies that I was representing, or still am representing. And everything was good, but I always wanted to fish the Classic. You know,
Yeah.
I always wanted to fish the Elites, and I felt like, you know, it was just the right time to try to do that. And there was a lot of grumbling and stuff going on over there, and I was just I gotten involved in the politics of that a little bit, and it was just frustrating as hell. So I said, you know what, we're gonna start fresh, get a clean slate going. And we're gonna try to qualify for the elites. And I was very fortunate to do that. And now I'm getting my tail kicked in the elites, and it's a complete freaking like civil war over here. And I'm like, what did I do? And now, you know, and now I find myself like feeling very passionate about it yet again, even though I swore to myself that I would never get involved again. And in a way, like well, I mean, I guess I am. I'm sitting here talking about it right now, but dude, I just want to see the sport go where we all want it to go. Like, you know, I just feel like every year we just like shoot ourselves in the foot, man. And it's always something. Like, we always, like, we build a hill every year to climb. You know, it seems like, and it doesn't matter where you're at. And I knew then, like, I wasn't looking at the situation with Major League Fishing and saying, like, the grass is greener over here, I'm gonna go over there.
No.
There's no doubt that the grass is greener where you water it. There's no doubt, and where you're able to, no matter where you're at in life, like, you can always look at it from a positive or a negative perspective, and you can make the most of it, or you can waller in it. So I'm very well aware. Anyway, so that's kind of a rundown on that. Honestly, it wasn't that I thought I was getting into a stress-free, like, no drama, perfect world over here. And I think, and I'll say this too, like, there's a lot of opportunities at Bassmaster. It's awesome to be an Elite Series angler, and it truly is. And it was really good being a Bass Pro Tour angler. Those 2 years of my career were phenomenal for me and for my brand and for the companies that I represented. So I don't think a lot of guys would probably say that, but I'm telling you that, like, man, it's what you make of it, you know. And there's a lot of opportunities right now in our sport for especially young anglers, and really it doesn't matter but how old you are, but there are a lot of opportunities for guys in our sport right now. There really is. And that's contrary to what you may hear on the internet, but there really is.
So you said you're in the middle of a civil war. Explain to me what you mean by that.
Well, man, I mean, it's no secret, you know. I mean, right now the big debacle is over forward-facing sonar, but if it's not one thing, it seems to be another, you know. I mean, last year, it was all about the rookies being all cheaters, you know, and it's all these young punks coming in that are all cheating and everything else. And then, so, you know, Bass made a decision to change the rules to kind of suit that, and all the anglers threw a fit about that. And, you know, I mean, the solution to the problem last year was to, you know, more polygraphs, and that made a huge uproar about that. Well, Bass gave them more polygraphs, and now it's a problem with the polygraphs. Like, we're taking too many polygraphs. So it's just like this constant, like, revolving, and it's one thing after another, you know? And the thing about it is, like, all of it, like, and while we're doing that, we're missing out on a lot of opportunities to be growing the sport. Like, we are spinning our wheels, and it's over stuff that really at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? I mean, people cheating is definitely a bad thing. Like it's something that we need to do something about, and they did. But I'm not saying that no means. But I mean, I'm just.
So you had said you're in the middle of a civil war. Explain to me what that is.
Yeah, man. Like I mean, it just seems like it's always something, man. It's like, and it's just really frustrating to see the industry like, and it's not really the industry because the industry's not doing that bad. But like to see professional fishing spinning its wheels, you know. Right now, obviously, the hot topic is forward-facing sonar, and like that is like what we feel like. Not we. There's a small percentage of the sport that feels like it is like the end of all times, and it's the topic of conversation that's going on right now. Obviously, of whether or not we keep that in the Elite Series or we remove it or we do a 50-50 split or this or that. So that's what's going on right now, but. Before that, it's all about the rookies cheating. Last year was a huge deal about all the rookies were cheaters. And the reality of it wasn't. There might have been a couple rules broke by one of the two of the anglers, but I'm pretty sure they were reprimanded for that. And they're probably better anglers now on and off the water because of it. They made mistakes. They're younger guys, and it happens. Okay. It's the reality of it is. New England Patriots deflated a football once. Guess what? Life goes on. Like, I'm not condoning it. I'm saying whenever things like that happen, you apply the appropriate penalties to the situation and you move on. People make mistakes. So I'm not crucifying anybody over that. I'm just saying that was like the end of the world last year. That was the end of the sport, right? Because we got these young guys coming in that are all cheaters. And then so the solution to that was let's take all these polygraphs and let's do all this and let's make the rules stricter and let's do that. And then we do that. And all of a sudden now all the anglers are pissed off because we got a bunch of polygraphs, and the wrong guys are getting caught. Like we ain't caught a rookie yet. Like, so that's not cool, I guess. I mean, it's just been so frustrating to see all this kind of go down and just see how much effort is going into things that like, man, it's just so there's so much effort going into, really us, and we're not moving the needle.
No.
The other huge deal. All right. For how long now has entry fees been a problem? I mean, if we could just get away entry fees, like everything would be just fine. They take away entry fees and the whole world goes to hell. Like it was a huge deal. And I realize on paper the payouts look terrible and this and that, but I mean, money just don't grow on trees. I mean, it's got to come from somewhere. And so that leads to the next deal about, so now, there's a percentage of anglers that think that live scope's the end of the world and that they want to eliminate that. And they're like, so what about all the companies that have spent all the money on lithium batteries and all these, the NBT, all the money they've invested in those screens, wiring harnesses, all the innovation in baits, like all this stuff. Where's that money? So we're just all of a sudden we want to do away with that. So like, I feel like we're in a situation right now in the sport where Dave Mercer may be about to fall out. You good?
No, I'm good. I just had to cough. I just moved my way up.
I'm good. No, but so like we're at this place where, and I mean, disagree with me if you feel like I'm wrong, but I feel like regardless of everything else, we're in a post-COVID hangover in this industry. 2020, 21, 22 exponential sales, like companies sold more than they could ever sell, like ever think about selling. Sold out of everything they had to the point where they couldn't make no money because they couldn't get no more because they had sold everything they had.
Yeah.
People spent so much money, and now like things are catching up. They paid astronomical prices for boats. Now They want to get a new boat, but they can't afford to sell their old boat. They're not buying new boats, so that looks bad. Same thing, they bought all this tackle and stuff. Like everything is just in this place where, it'll line itself out. Like it's just going to take a little time. We all knew that was going to happen. Like nobody was looking at the sales in 2021 going, man, this is going to keep going forever. Like everyone knew that was eventually going to like take a little bit of downturn and smooth itself out. And that's what it's done. And like, I hate to see that for the companies that I work with, but it will it'll line itself out. Like it will 100%. But the one thing right now in the industry that's driving sales is electronics. Like that's the one thing that's driving innovation in baits. We got all these new baits that are coming out, all this money that's been invested in the different types of forward-facing sonar baits and all of that, all the money that's went into the bigger screens and the bigger batteries to support these bigger screens and all this stuff.
Mount companies. Look at companies like Beat Down and all these different, Bassmaster, all of these different companies that make mounts.
So now we're just going to be like, we don't, that money's not good enough. Because like, isn't it mind-boggling that people are like, well, these electronic companies are buying the industry. Yeah, it's called business. Like, yes, they pay for us to promote and use their products, which in turn sells products for them. Like, that's the way the world works, right? Like, is that money not good enough? So if we eliminate forward-facing sonar, or we even restrict forward-facing sonar, like these electronic companies are going to pull back. So that means less money in the pot for Bassmaster, which in turn means less money for Elite Series anglers. So I don't see where that's a good thing at all. And like, I don't understand how we can have Lake Fork being the highest numbers ever in a Bassmaster event on Fox, and I've actually like fact checked that, and you can't skew the numbers on Big Fox. Like those numbers,
it makes a good internet clip to do that though. Like people will love your video if you say you can.
You can't skew Big Fox's numbers, like you can't. And I have reputable contacts. They're in the production industry that have the ability to see the numbers, and I promise you, Bass didn't lie about the numbers on Big Fox.
But the fact that we're even doing, like, okay, so we love this sport. Everybody, whether you love forward-facing sonar or don't, right? If you're listening to this podcast, you love this sport. I mean, me, you, before I knew you loved this sport. You know what I mean? But it's clear. But at a time when that number comes out, we're spending time just dissecting it and saying, well, that's not real because I don't like that. So it's arguing about it. It's insane.
They use forward-facing sonar, so those numbers can't be real because people don't watch forward-facing sonar. And like up until this point, somebody's been watching this for the last 5 minutes and they're like, this dude's just a forward-facing sonar freaking nut and that's all he wants to do. No, wait, let's pause for a minute. This ain't about forward-facing sonar. This is about us as a sport growing and moving in the right direction and not wasting time over petty crap that's being used as an excuse for something else. Like that's what this is about. The argument that forward-facing sonar is ruining the sport is not, it's just not like, you can't show me the numbers of that. Like you can't prove to me that forward-facing sonar is ruining the sport. You can't. Okay. You may say, well, I work for this company and they're not selling as many crankbaits anymore. I work for Strike King. Okay. We may not be selling as many crankbaits as we were a couple of years ago, but you know what? We've got a lot of really good baits now for forward-facing sonar and they are selling them. And guess what? If we spend as much time pushing what's really going on the water instead of just fighting over forward-facing sonar, that there was a bunch of bass caught at Lake Fork on a dadgum 6XD, but nobody talked about that. Nobody talked about fighters freaking swimming a jig with a rage crawl in the back of it. Nobody talked about that because it's not trendy. They can't get clicks off of that, so we're not going to promote that. That's the problem I have. You know, it's all about the narrative. It's not about growing the sport. It's about the narrative. And that's what pisses me off. You know, that's what really, really bothers me, because if you look at it from a whole, you know, the other argument is, well, I got a buddy that's 55 years old that sold his bass boat and he don't fish tournaments no more because of live scope. Well, for every guy that sold their boat and doesn't fish tournaments anymore because of live scope, there's 10 college anglers for a chance to replace that guy. So where are we at? Like, who's really going to carry the sport, right? And I hate to say it, but the guy that sold his boat and doesn't fish tournaments anymore because of live scope, that's it. He was looking for an excuse to quit fishing tournaments anyways. I promise you. Because, like, you shouldn't allow, there's no, like, I hate to see people, like, not go fishing because of what someone else is doing. Like, man, if you don't want to use live scope, don't. Man, go flip. Go throw a frog. I love throwing a frog as much as anybody.
Today's high-tech fishing world can be a real pain in the neck, especially if you're running the wrong mounts. Beat Down Outdoors, they bring the graph to you. And they support this podcast and care enough about you to make this a short ad read. Check out Beat Down Outdoors. Now back to the show.
Like, it's fishing, man. Go do it the way you want to go do it.
That's how it's always been.
Yeah.
You've always been able to fish the way you wanted to fish.
I'm not going to go tell Greg that he can't go flip a jig no more. How would that go? Just because, dadgummit, I want to throw my minnow. Like, I don't want to throw it. I mean, sometimes it's awesome when you're catching 8-pounders at fork on it. Sometimes when you're grinding away, just begging that you catch 5, it's frustrating. I'd rather go flip a jig, but I'm not going to tell Greg that he can't go flip one. Like, I just don't. I don't know. It's just so frustrating to see the industry spinning its wheels, man. It's so frustrating. And like, the fact that we've had the biggest youth movement ever in the history of the sport. Easton Fothergill wins the Classic, and he is the dream story. Like, that should have been the most celebrated moment in the history of our sport, bar none. Here you have a kid who not only is a great angler, but is a phenomenal person, a phenomenal representation of the sport. Went to college, got a good education, has dedicated his life up until this point at 22 years old, and goes and wins the Classic, and then gets an asterisk put beside it because he followed the rules and won the biggest tournament in bass fishing? Are you serious? Like, that's where we're at as a sport? Like, man, that right there in itself is what really, like, that's why I'm so fired up about all this. You know, instead of celebrating what Easton accomplished, we want to put an asterisk beside it because he followed the rules, because he used live scope, because he worked his ass off more than everyone else at 22 years old, and he outfished everybody. I called him the other day to ask him a question about how he felt about something, and he's so indifferent. Like, he's just such a good, like, he's not like me. He's not going to get fired up about anything. He's just so level-headed. But I called him, and I was like, did you hear about this? And he's like, no, I've been idling all day. I'm like, you're idling all day? Where are you at? And he's like, oh, I'm idling in Knoxville, getting ready for the Classic next year. How many guys are out there idling all day long for however long, for the last week and a half since the tournament?
Wow.
You know, like, dude, that's why he's winning. And it ain't because of what's on the front of his boat. You take that stuff off the front of his boat, and he's still going to win. You're not going to beat him. You're not. Unless you outwork him. And good luck doing that. You know? So that's my thing, man. It's like, dadgummit. Like, what's going to change if we limit live scope? Like, how's that going to help? At what point? Like, where? I mean, please tell me. Like, what is that going to do? You know, like, how is that going to help?
I don't have an answer to that. I think it's going to appease some people. I mean, I think that the people that are against it, but I honestly, I've said from the start, 50-50, whatever it ends up being disgruntlement anyways. Like, I think if you took Fork, for example, Tucker Smith won at Fork, and there are people who will say, Well, he won because of forward-facing sonar, and clearly he used it. I mean, 9 out of the top 10 used it. So they'll discredit his win. But let's just imagine that Fork was no forward-facing sonar and Seth Feider won. I still believe that a year from now, people will still say, well, yeah, but Seth wouldn't even have made the top 10 with that weight if we allowed forward-facing sonar. So it's going to be debate, whatever way you look at it. The one way I would look at it is with guys like Easton, is it's his opportunity to prove to the world. I mean, I feel like he's proved a lot already, but I mean, there's a certain percentage that until he is competing in events without it, they will just think that he's made by that piece of machinery. So there's that side to it, but ultimately, the one thing you say stands out to me, that if that same amount of energy was put into, like, if people really cared about the sport and promoting the sport, if the same amount of energy was put into it that's been put into this debate, this it's why do you think this is such a big thing now?
I think because the sport has evolved so much in the last couple of years. And it's changed so much. And I hate to say this, and I shouldn't say this, because I respect every single angler in this sport. I do. And I grew up idolizing some of them, watching them, and I still to this day respect them. I'm fans of them. Like I'm literally like a fan of some of these guys. Still to this day competing against them. But this sport has been so close-knit for so long, and now because of high school fishing and college fishing, it's growing, and it's growing fast. And our place in it is limited now. Our time in this sport is limited because of the turnover in it. It's becoming like a true sport. And some of the people that are in this sport that have the biggest voice are being pushed out because of new competition, because of young anglers who are utilizing the tools that are available to them. And they're going out kicking and screaming and fighting and clawing and trying to cause as much commotion as they can on the way out. And I hate to say that, but I'm going to call balls and strikes. And that's not probably something that's very popular to say. But I've always been honest and true to what I believe. And I've also always tried to look at things from the outside looking in. Like, I'm not saying this from my perspective. I've got my tail kicked by LiveScope this year. Okay? I'm in 70th in points in the Elite Series. And I can catch them without it. So it would maybe even help me right now against some of these younger guys. I'm not saying that it wouldn't if we didn't have LiveScope at the next event, because they're so dialed in on what they're doing. But I'm going to catch back up to them, because I'm going to go work my ass off and I'm going to make it right. But I don't think some of these guys are willing to do that. And I get it. Like, they fished a certain way for so long. Damn, it's not right that I got to go fish off the bank now whenever I made a living on a bank for 30 years. But it wasn't right whenever side image had come out and half the anglers were good at that and the other half didn't know. I mean, side image, every era of the sport has been dominated by technological advances.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it be maps back in the day with Roland, Kevin using side imaging and down imaging, and even then having better maps, and the advancement of braid, Randy Dearman kicking everybody's tail on Rayburn, 25 years ago whenever he invented braid. That wasn't fair that he had braid, nobody else did, and he's slipping 25 foot of grass. Like, that wasn't fair at all. But everyone has always figured out an edge. As long as it's within the rules, I don't see it. Like, it's been always part of the sport. Basketball, football, basketball isn't played the way that it was 10 years ago, is it not? The way baseball is played has changed. Now,
and there's people in basketball that will tell you how it's changed for the worse, in their opinion. You know what I mean? There's a lot less.
Sure.
I mean, it's all about the 3-pointer, that in their opinion has changed the game in a negative. You know what I mean? You got these guys, and if you put it in terms, I mean, they just got a cheat code. They just sit out there and they hit those threes, and you don't have to be good at anything else. But it's not that simple to hit the threes, just like it's not that simple to use that technology clearly. I mean, that's the one that I think anybody can agree that the internet has made it seem like you put that box on the front of your boat And it's just like playing bingo. When they call your number, I mean, you're going to catch
I'm going to go ahead
them.
and remind, I don't know how many viewers are going to watch this, but I'm going to go ahead and remind them of my weight on day 2 at Lake Fork. And it was like 1 pound and 7 ounces after I caught 31 the day before. And I utilized it all day long. And there wasn't a damn one of them big ones jump in my boat. You know, so we've covered a lot of ground there, but my point being is that, man, right now, where we're at in the industry, in the outdoor industry as a whole, and really the society, our economy as a whole is in a post-COVID hangover, right? We got a couple things that are still hot and heavy right now in the bass fishing industry, and it's a lot of it's being driven by electronics and the youth involvement in our sport. We're trying to cut out the electronics, cut back on the electronics, and we're cursing all these young kids for being good at what they're doing. Look, is it fair that 20 years ago, not every 19-year-old had a bass boat and, you know, a bunch of it's just a different time, man. You can't hate these for having those opportunities. Well, be mad at their parents for kicking or for working their tail off and being able to provide, however they got it, a boat for these kids to go chase a dream. And yet again, these kids are fishing. They're in the outdoors. They're doing something they're passionate about. Ain't hurting a damn thing. They ain't on the streets. You know, they're working their ass off, and they actually have an opportunity to go get an education and potentially fish professionally one day or get a job in the industry. Or there's so many opportunities. And we're going to make them the bad guys? Are you kidding me? Like, it's just mind-blowing, man. Like, it's just wild. Like, if you look at the last 2 years and like the way that's been, dude, that ain't cool. It's not cool at all. And so, like we said earlier, so if we just focus as much effort on positive things in the sport and growing the sport and figuring out ways to be more innovative with the sport, if we put all the effort we put into spinning our wheels and fighting over stupid crap that don't really matter, and I'm not saying that forward-facing sonar doesn't totally matter, because it does to somebody. I'm not trying to say they're valid, but I'm just saying, what if we put all that effort into conservation? Like, what if we put all that effort into getting grass back in these lakes and making the habitat better and better restocking programs, because there's more pressure on the lakes than ever before? What if we put all this energy just into that? To where whenever you showed up at Rayburn next year in January, you could go throw a trap or a red-eye shad and catch them, because there's so much grass somewhere and the fishery is so healthy that you don't have to go sit out in the middle of the lake and scope one because there's no grass, you know? Or what if, you know, we put as much effort into restocking programs, because the reality of it is that there's more fishermen on the water than ever before, and that's a good thing. Right? It's a good thing for me. It's a good thing for you. You're wearing a BKK hat. It's a good thing for them, right? So more hooks. It's a good thing for everyone. Bass Pro Shop, Strike King, Luz, Cabela's, all that. And we don't need that number to go down. Like, we don't. And so why not provide more opportunities? Why not figure out a way to make the fisheries better, to make people want to go? Just like Fork. I guarantee you, there's been plenty. How much like revenue do you feel like that event probably generated for Lake Fork? How many? I bet you can't get an Airbnb up there right now.
I mean, I don't know how much revenue it driven. It's not a right way to speak, but I don't know what the actual number is, but I just know how the people of that community respond to you when you go to a store, when you go, you know what I mean? They're excited to have the Elite Series there. Thank
you for catching those bass, because my store is going to have business now for the next year, even more than that. Like, people guarantee you that every single place is booked up for that week next year at Lake Fork, because they know how good it could be and they're going to be there. You know, I mean, so think about, and Texas Parks and Wildlife does such a phenomenal job at making that into the bass fishing factory that it is. If we weren't fighting so much over this crap, what if Garmin and Bassmaster was putting that much effort into the conservation efforts of making all these fisheries better?
Yeah.
Like, restocking programs and all of that, but instead we're just spinning our wheels, man. Going round and round and round in circles. And the problem is that the biggest thing is I've said that like 17 times, but we're going to limit live scope. We're going to limit live scope next year in the Elite Series. Probably, maybe. I hope not, but I bet we will. And if they do, guess what? The 50-50 won't be good enough. Because in the 50% of events, like you said, there'll be an asterisk beside the ones that the guys win with it. There'll be an asterisk beside the ones that the guys win without it. And for the 50% of events that we have that do allow live scope, the people that don't want live scope are going to fuss that much more in those 50% of events. It's going to be the end of the damn world in all 50% of those events. And there'll be another push a bit next year. The problem is, like you said the other day, everything in this sport's temporary. It all has its place, and it all ends up panning itself out. And you know what? In 2 years, there's going to be 20 more college anglers that move up into the Elite Series that are freaking snipers. And that's all they want to do is scope. And guess what? And that boat ain't going to be the same.
Yeah. Well, there used to be 10 fish limits, used to be 7 fish limits. Now it's 5 fish limits. That stuff changes. And I've said that about live scope from the beginning. Like, I don't know a lot of 20-year-olds that don't like it. So kick and scream all you want and hate it as much as you want. And I get there's parts of it that I don't like. I don't like how it's less entertaining on live because it's like talking to somebody when they're texting. But that's also what I would say back to the younger generation. That's your job.
That's your job.
It's if you look at the history of bass, there's been so many big moments but Bass provides a platform. You know what I mean? They can't make the moment
for you to
bigger.
Entertain. Yeah, they provide that platform for you to entertain. It's up to you to do it in that moment. And we have missed that boat, I think, at times. And I don't mean to cut you off, but you made a very good point that at times it is boring to watch. But you know what's really boring to watch too? Somebody that's flipping that's not talking about what they're flipping. And you're looking at the back of their head all day long. A guy that's dragging a Carolina rig all day long, that's pretty damn boring too if he's not telling you what he's dragging a Carolina rig on. You watch a guy sight fishing, that's quite possibly the most boring thing in the world is to watch a guy sit there and sight fish. But you know what else? I'll flip it around the other way. The other day, whenever Drew Cook was about to catch that 4-pounder on day 4 at Hartwell, and he was narrating every single thing about how he was flipping in there, why he was flipping in there, what the bass was doing. Oh, she's nosing down on it. She's not paying no attention. I'm going to wait. I'm going to hold it here for 30 seconds before I shake it. Dude, I was on the edge of my seat driving my truck. I'm like, dude, he's about to catch her. He's about to win this tournament on this bass right here. He created that. He did his job as a professional angler, and he was doing what could have been the most boring thing in the world to watch. But he made it entertaining because he did his job as a professional angler. And you could do the same thing with live scope, especially with the ability to put that thing on a screen and be able to show in real time exactly what I'm doing and me to narrate on why those fish are there and how they're reacting to my bait and how the bait's set up high in the water column today because it's sunny and the water's warmer up there or whatever it may be. Like, there's so many opportunities for us to make this sport more entertaining than it is with or without live scope.
Yeah.
At the end of that point, it's the professional's obligation to do that to the best of his ability, and it's also Bassmaster's obligation to give us that opportunity, which I feel like they do. But they can. I think there's some innovative ways on how we can even grow that even more.
Yeah.
And it's just food for thought. But you know what I'm saying?
And I think I totally agree that there's lots of ways they can make it better, and they are working to try and make it better. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the angler's got to feel a little bit of that. I will say that the weird thing that is happening is you've got a group of anglers that are very quiet and don't want to show baits, don't want to play the game that everybody's played for a long time. And I think that technology does that to you too, to a certain extent. Like if me and you are talking, I pick up my phone and I start texting, we're still talking, but I'm not focused on you. Right. And that is part of it. Like on camera, it plays out rough. And I think that's hurt some of these young anglers because they aren't doing that part, which makes viewers dislike it more that don't really probably dislike it. I mean, they dislike it as much as they disliked drop shotting on 2D sonar, years ago. I mean, it's the same thing, but
right.
I mean, I think again, back to effort, everybody's got to put that effort in. Like if we really care about growing the sport, because here's the truth. I mean, every time passes for everybody. And in 10 years, 20 years, it's going to look totally different for everybody. Yep. Myself, yourself, everybody, no matter what age you are, you want that time to make an impact. And there's being mad at youth is probably not the right approach in anything. Like, I mean, it's undefeated in the history of mankind. You can hate the 9-year-old that lives down your street, but guess what? One day that 9-year-old is going to be your boss, most likely at something. It's
and you know what, the reality is that at some point in time, youth and technology probably combined are going to push me out of the sport without a shadow of a doubt. It's inevitable. It's coming. It may not be until 20 years from now. It may be 5 years from now. It may be 2 years from now, but it's coming. It's going to happen, and I'm very well aware of that. I'm very well aware of it. But I know that the only thing I can control is the fact that I optimize my opportunities and do the best I can in the space while I have the opportunities in front of me, and that's by working my tail off, working as hard as everyone else. And that's just all it comes down to, at some point in time, we all reach a point in life where there's more important obligations than spending every day on the water.
Yeah,
this is, you have family and other obligations. I mean, I don't spend as much. I've got to figure out a way to spend more time on the water now, because I'm not having the success that I once had. It's happening to me right now because of the obligations that I have from a business perspective. Now, these are all great obligations that I'm very, very thankful for. They're obligations that I've worked my tail off for. And then you throw in maybe family on top of, like, someone that has kids and a wife and all that. And I get it. I totally do. But you can't be mad at a kid that's 21 years old that fishes every day from daylight till dark and say that it's not fair for them to have success because they work from daylight till dark at the craft and you have other obligations. It's not their fault. It's not the kid's fault. It's not the younger angler's fault. And it doesn't have to be the kid. It could be the guy that retires at 50 years old, sells his business and decides he's going to fish for a living and does it every single day and has some success doing it. And there are some older anglers that have embraced the technology and are very good with it. Very. So it's not limited to just the younger generation. But I just don't want to see us hold the sport back and keep it from growing and just trying to preserve it. Like I feel like at an extent, we're trying to preserve the sport and keep it as close-knit as we possibly can because it's been that way for a long time. It really has. I mean, it has. We had the same guys for a long, long time. They were always household names.
So if you were in charge of Bass and you were in charge of making this decision, what would you do?
Dude, I wouldn't want to be Chase Anderson in this situation. Like, it's not. Dude, I mean, like, it's not an easy decision now because you've got a certain percentage of anglers that, have voiced their opinion, and you don't want to just say we don't care because they do care. I truly believe that they do care a lot. I mean, look at all the changes that have been made in the last 12 months. Like, they're trying, they're listening. They're listening to, they're making, MLF wasn't doing that.
Well, you look at just the changes in the lie detector protocol, the amount of more money they're spending doing that, bigger, more lie detector tests, more stringent truth verification tests.
And guess what? They're getting roasted over it by the anglers.
Yeah. They're doing exactly what they were asked to do. Yeah.
And they asked for it. And now they're getting roasted over it. Like, MLF didn't do that. Boyd said this is the way it's going to be, boys and girls. And they're doing what they want. I mean, they're cutting the field and they're doing this and they're doing that. But they're doing what they have to do to make the business work.
Avco not only makes incredible outdoor clothing, but they care about anglers with their 10% pledge. Avco and the Shed family donate at least 10% of the company's profits to conservation and making fishing better. Now back to the show.
And that doesn't always benefit everybody. And that's the evil truth about this deal. There's 101 guys. How many guys are in the Elite Series now?
102.
102. That's 102 different businesses.
Yeah.
102 different people trying to run their own personal business. And what's good for me, probably isn't good for the guy sitting beside me. So we're all voting on all these decisions to be made. And you can't blame a guy for voting for what's best for him in his own personal business. But just because somebody's voting for what's best for their personal business doesn't mean it's best for Bassmaster, and doesn't mean it's best for the sport of bass fishing. It don't. If all the NFL players got together and all voted, like we talked about that the other day, that's a very good analogy. You think NFL players want to play on Christmas Day?
Nope.
You think they want to play on Thanksgiving? You think they want to play on Mondays and Thursdays and all? No, probably not. But the NFL looked at the situation and said, look, boys, we're going to pay y'all a lot of money, and we're going to market this right. And it's going to be good for the whole damn NFL. So you're going to play on Christmas Day. And guess what? Probably some guys ain't real happy about it, but it's business decisions, and it's no different than this situation we're in right now. Like, yeah, we can. So let's just say, you asked me, the question you asked me, if I'm Chase Anderson, what do I do? Okay, so I'm not Chase Anderson, obviously. I don't know what he's going to do, but I can say this. Let's say we decide to listen to the anglers. Let's say we make it 50-50 next year. Well, then Garmin and Lowrance pull out money. All of a sudden, there's less money in the pot. So now all of a sudden the payouts are less. How much uproar is that going to make? And then we still have the asterisks beside those events that one way or the other, if it was live scope, he wouldn't have won. If it wasn't live scope, blah, blah, blah. So it still creates a mess, man. It's a mess. It's a mess. Now, MLF does what they do, and it's unique, right? Because they have officials in every boat. They have different periods. It's just a totally different structure, and it's very unique to and it's helping them. They're being successful with it. But we can't do that, and we shouldn't try to do the same thing they're doing. Like, we shouldn't. Like, we should do our own thing. MPFL fell in a really good spot with no live scope. They were in a position where they didn't have any electronic sponsorships anyways. Like, they weren't getting no money from Garmin. They weren't getting any money from Lowrance. It didn't hurt them financially to limit technology in their events. It actually gave them a unique
helped them.
It gave them a unique niche in the marketplace and gave them a spot. It gave them a place. So this is where we can go and have a raw, old school tournament. We can embrace it. And I think it's great. I do. I think it's great. I think it's awesome for those guys. I mean, I think it's good that they can go over there and compete and not have to worry about it. And it's so funny to see guys go over there and have the success that they're having. And these are guys that I love and adore. Like, they're awesome anglers. I freaking love them. But it's so cool to, it's interesting to see them go have the success they're having in an event where a live scope's not allowed, but then being in an event where live scope's not even really a factor and they still don't do well. And I'm like, man, that just shows how mental this sport is, and it's wild. It's just crazy to see that, like the Sabine River, I think, threw a little bit of a message out there, right? Because live scope definitely was a factor, but let's just say it was a What percent factor? You watched the whole thing. What percent factor was live scope in that event?
Not a big one. I mean, it played. It did. It definitely. I think it played more than it looked like it played. I mean, but I don't know, percentage wise,
10%,
10%, 15% tops. You know, like, yeah, you're right.
But how
there.
many guys were in the top 10 that you would consider scopers that weren't scoping?
Lots. Yeah. If you look at the top 25, it was a lot of
that actually weren't really scoping. Like they were actually like fishing.
Yeah.
That just throws a weird kink in the whole thing, you know?
I think the mental side of it is the biggest, like you said, Bill Owen, look at him. I mean, he self-admittedly last year got wound up in the got to get rid of ban live scope and, you know, was real down and literally spent the off season saying, hey, I'm going to fish the way I got to fish. Like when I can fish my way, but when I need to do that, I'm proficient in doing that. And he hasn't missed a cut this entire year. I mean, it's literally, went from his worst season in his Elite Series history, and he's been there since day number one, since the Elite Series started, to not missing a cut. And literally the only thing he says he changed was his head and the way he's thinking.
His attitude. That's awesome. Like, how awesome is that? Like that, to me, it's just doing what you got to do to stay relevant and like to survive. And dude, life, man. It don't matter. Like everything, the way we sell real estate today is different than the way we sold real estate 5 years ago.
So I remember my mom was a salesperson. I remember, you know, growing up and her talking about these new salespeople coming into her company that knew how to use computers, and like she was never going to do that. And she was the last generation of people that were like that got by. And you know, she was a good enough salesperson that people kind of cleaned up some of her stuff over the years. You know what I mean? Where they would do the computer stuff, but now you can't get a job without using a computer. You can't be a good enough salesperson.
Right.
And that, I mean, if the trend continues in fishing that it did in everything in life, in photography, I mean, there was a group of people who shot with film and decided digital cameras, that's not real photography. It's not what I do. Well, guess what? They're not doing it anymore. You know what I mean? Now it's dominated by that. So that's not an opinion. That's just facts on how the world has worked in every business, not just bass fishing.
I do think that we've probably learned as an industry, like we don't maybe need to exploit everything in the future that's possible. Like, you know, like for example, we don't need to have 6 graphs, 7 graphs on every boat. We don't necessarily need to have transducers pointing off of every corner of it. Okay. And I may get reprimanded about that a little bit from companies that I work with, because guess what? Bass Pro Shops, they sell live sonars and they sell graphs. So the more people that we want to put on boats, the better for Bass Pro Shops, and the better for Garmin, the better for Lowrance, and the better for Humminbird and all that. But whatever. I think we realize, man, like we kind of got to keep this in a realistic, you know, like we got to keep this somewhat realistic. Like we can't get stupid with it, right? So I think that's been done. Like we've done that. I think it kind of checked the reins a little bit. That doesn't mean that something else won't come down, you know, the pipe at some point in time. Inevitably, it probably will. But I think it at least checked the reins a little bit to say, hey, look, you know. But I just don't think that limiting it in our space, because now what the other organizations have done in the place that they're in, I just don't think it's the right move. I don't think it's going to solve the problems that we feel like we have. I think it's going to create just as many problems as it actually it's going to help a couple guys' ego, and then it's going to like create another problem here, and it's going to create another problem here, create another problem there, and I just don't think it's the right direction to go. And I just hate to see us spinning our wheels as an industry and not moving in the right direction. And I quote me on this, I promise to you, if they limit it or they ban it, there'll be just as much commotion about something else next year, and we'll just be kicking the can down the road. And so, like, what's the solution? Like, what do we? Somebody in this industry has to take the reins, and I mean that from an organization standpoint. Like, I hope it's Chase Anderson, and I hope it's Bassmaster, but just because selfishly that's where I'm at. But there is so much potential out there in the outdoor industry for this sport to grow, especially with how much youth wants to be involved in it right now. Last weekend at Sam Rayburn, Memorial Day weekend, I tried taking family out on Sunday to hit the shad spawn. Dude, you couldn't freaking find a bank with hay grass to get on without 3 boats on it. It was unreal how many people were fishing out there. The fishing industry is not dead. It's just diluted and spread out right now, and there's a lot of controversy in it. That's it. But people are still fishing, and fishing a lot, you know? So I just hope and pray that somebody in this industry takes control of the situation with the correct vision and the right mindset in mind, and is able to bring this thing to the next level. You know, because if we keep doing what we're doing right now with this, the way we're doing it, like, you think these giant non-endemic companies are looking at this situation and going, that was like something I want to put my name on?
No, that's, I mean, if you're the dude looking at getting into pro fishing and you Google it, the first thing you come up with weights and walleye, and the next thing you come up with is the controversy over forward facing sonar. And
what?
I mean, it's
you think
the last thing you want to do is be part of that.
You think, I don't know, Coca-Cola cares whether or not we use forward facing sonar or not?
I would assume not. No.
Do you think they care about having youth involvement in the sport?
I would assume yes, very much. Yeah.
Do you think they would like to see a competitive, like, marketplace where, like, guys are really working their tail off, and, like, there's, like, this exciting turnover, and, like, people are just earning? Yeah, I don't know. I'm just throwing some ideas out there. I'm just thinking. I don't know. And I may be like just a lunatic in East Texas. I don't know. But I just try to look at this from a ceiling, you know, looking down. Hey, are we moving in the right direction, or are we just like kind of spinning our wheels here?
Does it concern you that, I mean, just by saying this, you'll probably deal with some blowback from some people?
No, I'm speaking what I, you know, and like I've talked to enough people in the industry they're not emotionally attached to it being one way or the other, that are very like, can I bring up the fact that you just talked to Rick?
Yeah, sure. Of course. Yeah.
What did Rick say?
Rick said you cannot handicap knowledge. And he said he's learning how to become a better angler. He's seen things like Shane LaHue catching fry garters the way he's catching them, and all these different opportunities. And in his opinion, he equated it to flipping and things like that. He said when flipping came along, they wanted to ban it. They said that you were accessing fish that had never been accessed before. You were doing it in an unsporting manner. You know, you were doing it.
What if they'd have had Facebook then? I think it would have been in the same dumpster fire.
Yeah.
I think whenever Kevin was smoking everybody's tail with side inventory, I think that if there was Facebook in that way, I think there'd have been a lot of people on Kentucky Lake real mad that their old school holes got exposed and all of that, you know. And that's something else we didn't talk on, which, you know, we're getting long-winded in this, but, you know, I mean, for guys to say, and I want to say this to encourage people, like, you have more of an opportunity right now than you ever have before to go to Sam Rayburn and win a big event. Because especially whenever Rayburn's good, like when everybody wants to be at Rayburn pre-spawn, you know, if you weren't one of 10 years ago, if you weren't one of a couple teams you didn't have a chance. 10%'s always won 90% of the tournaments here. Always. And most of them were won off the same couple spots. And if you weren't one of the original guys that were entitled to fish one of those couple spots, guess what? You didn't have a chance. You showed up on one of those spots, man. You were a hole poacher. Like you were somewhere you weren't supposed to be. I mean, I'm serious. Like there, Rayburn, a lot of events have been won off the same couple places. People would always rotate through them. Some weekends it'd be Rambo, and some weekends it'd be Albert and Clayton, and some weekends it'd be, Dickie catching them here and there. But dude, I mean, it was a very small group. Todd Castledine and Jason Bonds ran it for a long time, but those guys were so dialed in on what they were doing, and they were catching them off little places. And if you weren't on one of them places, you didn't have a chance. You didn't. And like I said earlier, 10% of the guys have always won 90% of the tournaments. And they've always won it in 5% of the water. But now you can show up at Sam Rayburn, and there are people winning tournaments in places that ain't never been won before. The whole lake is open. We don't have to. So there's more anglers than ever before on the water. There's not more water. Lake ain't getting no bigger. I'm just using Rayburn for example. New pockets aren't showing up every day on Rayburn. And now with the lack of grass, for whatever reasons, in most of our fisheries, there's less habitat. So we got more anglers, less habitat, more pressure. Well, here at Rayburn, at least you ain't got to fight over the same little pocket or the same little hard spot no more, because I can go find them on timber, submerged out in the middle of the lake, or I can go find them swimming around the dam, or I can go find them swimming out on some rock down the dam, or maybe in open water on threadfin. They don't get like that on Rayburn here a whole lot. The big ones don't. I'm telling you some secrets, telling you some juice, but the big ones don't float a whole lot here. Every now and then you'll catch a big one for sure. But, well, I'm going to say this. They don't float over open water a whole lot. But the point being is that there's so many opportunities now to win all over this lake. You just got to go out there and put in the effort. And forward-facing sonar gives you that opportunity, So that's why I support that, because it gives more anglers opportunity to literally catch more fish in different areas than ever before. Okay. And rather than, I mean, it was the end of the world whenever so-and-so got into it with so-and-so over, you're fishing my hole, you're on my spot, blah, blah, blah. You're on my brush pile. Now it's just, you don't hear about that no more. Not nearly as much, because the whole lake plays. And I'll take it even further than that. Because I talked to Corey Rambo last weekend, and he's one of the local hammers here at Rayburn, caught more 30-pound bags than anybody I know dragging a Carolina rig. And he was like, man, I can't. He's like, I don't know where the big ones are. And he was probably bullshitting a little bit because he's a bullshitter, but just like any other good local fisherman. But he's like, man, dude, I fished my tail off all day long. I ain't catching nothing over 3.5 pounds. And he's like, dude, I drug a Carolina rig on some of the best stuff on brim beds. I drug it around brush piles. I drug it around, the best points on the lake, and I didn't catch a 3.5 pounder. Why? There should be one on every one of them. Dude, they just don't live there like they used to. They don't, because of the pressure. They've been caught off them hard spots so many times because they're not secrets no more. Mapping, if anything, has exposed everything.
Oh, mapping's huge, and nobody mentions it.
Nobody.
And if you ask me on my boat, like if you said, okay, we're going to eliminate electronics, what's the first thing that you defend, like of your electronics that you want to keep?
Yeah.
I think that the first thing I defend and the first thing I say I have to have is mapping.
Yeah, sure. 100%. So because of the maps that we have now, thanks to Garmin and Humminbird and all that, dude, there ain't no secrets no more. So you thinking that you're going to go have a hard spot to yourself out here on Rayburn for a 3 or 4 day event, dude, you're not. You're not going to have it to yourself. You're not going to win tournaments off of one spot anymore. You're just not going to do it. And because those fish don't live on them places like they used to. When I say live there, I mean they don't stay there. They may go sit there, but within 2 days, they're going to get jerked and boat flipped. Like, it just is what it is. There's so much pressure on the lakes, and it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because in order to say that that's a bad thing, you'd have to say that there should be less people fishing. If there are less people fishing, there's less people buying products. And there's less people buying products, it's not good for any of us. So I'm like, dude, no, I want all the people out there, and I want them fishing the bank, and I want them fishing in the middle. No, just nobody talks about that fact. Like, nobody talks about anything positive about it other than, oh my God, they're catching all the fish in the lake. You know, it just opens up more opportunities for more people to be successful if they look at it from a positive perspective. Just looking at a pure opportunity standpoint, it really does. You know, if a guy shows up at Rayburn, he don't have to necessarily know the lake the best, and he can go spend enough time out there to figure out where fish are living at that time and catch them and be successful. And somebody will say, well, that's not fair because I've been fishing out here 30 years. I earned my right to go, you know. But did you own it? Do you own that brush pile? Like, do you own that hard spot? Or do you own that stump? Do you own that? Like, because if somebody else goes fish it, they're wrong for doing that too. You know, like, these are just petty things that we've fought for years in the sport, you know, and I get it. I'm not saying I don't. I found places on Rayburn before that I'm like, man, I hope nobody ever shows up here. But guess what? They do. And they're going to continue to do it. So I just say that to say, like, look, it's just a different perspective to think about whenever you look at the opportunities that it does present. It just opens up the entire lake for opportunities for people to fish and to have success. So there's just that side of it. And then somebody on here, the other point I really want to make was that somebody's going to say, well, man, them fish ain't smart enough to just not go sit on a point because they're going to get caught. Like, they don't adapt like that. They're going to say that fish don't think that much. Well, no, they're not out there doing a mathematical equation in their head saying, man, if I go out there on Monday, I got a good chance of staying there till Wednesday, but come Thursday, the weekend traffic's going to hit and I'm going to have to get my ass back out there in open water. No, they ain't doing that. I'm not saying they are, but I will say this. When we talked about this the other day, you could go throw an Alabama rig anywhere, and 4 or 5 of them would swim out of nowhere and eat that son of a gun because they had never seen it before, and it was new to them. It was, and now it's just like any other bait. The fish have adapted to it. Same thing with a whopper plopper or even a crankbait or a new jig or a minnow for that matter. Used to be able to, like 4 years ago, I could throw a minnow at every single one of them out there and they'd bite it. And now it's 1 in 10. They've already adapted. So that's going to limit the effectiveness of these new techniques quickly. And it already has. It's made it very difficult. 3 years ago, yeah, it was stupid because the fish had never seen it. And now they've already adapted to it. So fish do adapt. They adapt to the pressure that we put on them, and it's just their way of surviving. And you know, it's just nature. It's pretty damn cool, really, if you think about it. And they're going to continue to adapt. We're finding new ways to catch them, and I think that it's an exciting. It was really exciting at Fork. I mean, you know,
yeah.
So, and I think you even mentioned, like, now your car, and it's funny that now we're like looking at actually doing something about this and limiting for it. And now all of a sudden, like, at the same time, like, people are like, whoa, wait. So now, like, you're starting to hear the other side of it.
Well, the silent side's been the ones that have been using it and just been like, I don't want to. Now they're going to start talking. I mean, prime example. I mean, if that wasn't being thrown around, that it'd be 50-50. Me and you probably aren't having this conversation because you're like, whatever. Whatever. You don't have to stand against something if it's not against you, you know, and that's what we're going to start to hear from a lot of young guys who do like using it. And I mean, your points are very valid about how fish adapt. I mean, and they adapt to electronics. I mean, on the Great Lakes, we used to be able to drop 2 fish on 2D sonar and you would catch every single one. I mean, I remember literally there were times where you could catch fish without even standing on the front deck of your boat. You would literally idle, see them, drop it off the side, and you catch every single one.
Kyle and now I had 30 pounds one day on Ontario doing exactly that and never put down the trolling motor. I mean, never put down the trolling motor. It was so much fun. You just idle around. We would both sit there like this, idling with the drop shot dangling in the splash wheel, And it was a race to see who could get their drop shot down there the fastest with a 3/4 ounce freaking weight. And every time, by the time you got on the back deck, you hold on. There was a 4.5, 5 pounder on it.
Yeah, well, that's changed. They don't need.
They don't do that
anymore.
They don't. They don't do that anymore. Actually, they still might do that because that's actually a little different. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, there's certain fisheries they don't mind the motor though. But when you think about it, that's a fishery. Okay, so where people say the fish won't adapt, well, that's a fishery that gets protected a lot of the year by Mother Nature, whether it's wind or ice. So those fish don't even get near the pressure that a Guntersville or any of these Sam Rayburn, any of these bodies of water get. And they adapted. So things will adapt. So what I take from this is the people that have talked about growing the sport for a while, and maybe they didn't mean it because it seems like it's growing.
Thank you. I'm really glad you said that. I didn't have to say it because that was like the message, like the whole time as a kid. Like I remember hearing that. That's what inspired me. I watched Jordan Lee win 2 classics, and I was like, dude, I want to do that. Like, and it was all about growing the sport and growing the sport. Well, guess what? It's growing, and all of a sudden we're like, do we really want it to grow? And I think, hell yes, we want it to grow. And I'm just kicking and fighting and trying to promote the growth. Hey, that growth is going to push me at that day. I will.
Well, I mean, it takes a lot of balls to say what you're saying. I think we're going to hear more of it. And I think, if nothing else, the comments on this podcast will be entertaining because I know there's a certain percentage that they dislike it, and that's their right to dislike it. And anybody that says anything positive for it will be looked upon negatively by them. And I get that. There's people who look at bass fishing as negative. There's fly anglers that are like, you guys use 50-pound braid. But ultimately, everyone's allowed their opinion. But when that opinion overshadows the good, and there is so much good right now. I mean,
and it is overshadowing it for sure.
Huge.
It's overshadowing the good.
I've run a Yamaha outboard for over 30 years. It has got me home safe each and every time. If you enjoy this podcast, remember, Yamaha supports it, and they care enough about you to make this ad read very short. Now back to the show.
You know, and you take Easton's story, and I think that's the biggest one. And I'm not saying Easton isn't benefiting from being a classic champion, but the fact that there was even the slightest bit of BS about that just makes me like fighting mad, you know? So that's a great example of you're saying like just the BS right now overshadowing some really, really, really good inspirational stuff.
Wow.
I mean, how many college kids have gotten scholarships in the last couple of years to go get an education from bass fishing?
Which at one time, while I worked for Bass, seemed like that was fantasy talk. When people started saying one day kids will get a scholarship, like that was, and I'm talking while I worked for Bass. So within the last 15, 16 years, this conversation's happened where people thought that was foolishness. And now nobody thinks that is foolishness because it's happening as much as it's happening. The fact that nobody's making videos about the fact that we had a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old standing side by side at the Super Bowl of bass fishing that was televised on Fox, Network Fox that day. And we're making videos about other stuff.
But in that moment,
blows
right
my
there,
mind away.
That and the point that I'm driving home is that you had a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old on the biggest stage of the sport that have both earned their right to be there. Like, earned their right to be there. Love him or hate him, Trey McKinney works his ass off. He's been doing it for a long time. There's videos of him fishing with Aaron Martins or whoever way back in the day, you know, all that stuff. The kid's been working his tail off at it since he was a little kid. But you've got a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old standing on the biggest stage of this sport. And the people that are trying to get live scope banned hate that. And that's the problem I have. It's not the technology. It's the fact that they're not supporting those kids who have earned their spot because they've used technology that they don't feel like is suitable. And that's just mind blowing to me.
You know, it's mind blowing to me. I can't erase the feeling that I feel like you should grab 2 beers, smash them together, and say right now, and that's the bottom line.
I got a water. Do you want to do that one? That's freaking Robertson's thing, dude. I ain't taking that one.
No, but I feel like you've been on a very stone cold Steve Austin speech here in the last. I mean, you've been very passionate about what you feel.
Man, I just want to see. I want to try to see the sport grow, man. I want to see more opportunities for these high school and college anglers. I want to see Bassmaster grow, because if Bassmaster figures out a way to grow this sport and take it to the next level, then it gives me a even better platform yet to represent Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's and Nitro and Strike King and Lose, which then promotes more young kids to want to be in this space, to get their parents to go buy them a boat, to get their parents to go buy them tackle. If the sport grows, it benefits Bass Pro Shops, it benefits me, it benefits you, it benefits everybody. Like, that's where I'm at with it. Look, this isn't about my personal initiative. This isn't about creating an environment that's going to necessarily make me have an edge on the water. This is about, like, focusing on the things in the sport that matter to move it in the right direction so that we can all benefit from it. And it may even be the guy that's fishing in a John boat in a farm pond somewhere that don't care the slightest bit about live scope. You know, I want that guy to enjoy fishing just as much as, you know, what I'm doing on the Bassmaster Elite Series. You know, and that's the whole thing. You don't have to use live scope. You don't have to be a professional fisherman. You don't have to fish on the Elite Series. There's the NPFL that doesn't allow live scope. Go fish it. You know, it doesn't mean that necessarily that's what the future of Bassmaster needs to be, with all of these young anglers that are using the technology and aspiring to be there. So that's just where I'm at, man. There's a lot of different opportunities in this sport. Take them, use them, maximize them. Go fish the way you want to fish. Enjoy the outdoors. Quit fighting over stupid, silly crap. Quit trying to push your own personal initiatives and shooting down the sport. You know, like, that's my whole message here. You know, go fishing, enjoy the outdoors, quit fighting, quit bitching, more fishing. That's me.
Hey, man, since when did fellow anglers become the enemy? They're not. There's real people who, while we're arguing about this crap, there's other people that are a lot smarter and are our real enemies that are.
Think about the fact that we're in a country. No offense, Canada, right there. Canada's included. I love Coop Gallant. I'm sorry, I felt awkward when I said that. But, like, man, we're on a. Sorry, Johnson Brothers. So we're on a continent, or there's a lot of people in this world, really. I mean, I'm going to South Africa in a couple months to go fishing that tournament over there. Dude, we're bass fishing, man, for money and calling it a living and doing it for fun. And you got a lot worse situations in the world. Mm-hmm. And here we are fighting over the right way to bass fish. Come on, man. Come on. I'm in on that.
Yeah, that's a strong ending. Strong ending. You're going to win 10 killer, right?
Yeah, Zona, you know, we talked about that a while ago. Zona said he picked me again to win 10 killer, and I've let him down. I think I'm 5 for 5 for letting him down. So 10 killer's the one.
Dude, this podcast has some power. I mean, I do not have any power, but this podcast we've had, I mean, Hamner won the Classic right after being on this podcast. Takumi won last year. Smith right after being in this podcast. There's been a bunch. Yeah. So
I love it, dude. Hey, I'm about laser focused. I'm mad at him, dude. I'm feeling rejuvenated just because, like, having such bad tournaments, like, it just makes you, you know, just forget about everything else and just get back to enjoying it. And so I'm back to that point. I'm excited about getting a 10 killer. I'm excited about going fishing here in a couple minutes when I get off this podcast. I'm going to go try to tune up for the next several days, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks, or in a week and a half.
Yeah. See you then. Thank you very much, dude.
You bet, man. Thank you.
Great stuff from Dakota Ebare. And I'm looking forward to the comments on this show, because I know they are going to go in all different directions. But the one thing that he said that really stands out to me, and I've kind of believed it for a long time. It's just bass fishing. It's what we do because we love it. So let's all get along. Other anglers are not the enemy. And I think some of what Dakota shared, you're going to hear more of it. I mean, it has been a quiet group because, hey, they're just enjoying using the technology. And there's been a lot of people that have been very vocal that are against the technology. But now all of a sudden you're going to start to hear from the other side. And I thank Dakota for, quite frankly, reaching out to me and being like, hey, I got some stuff I want to say and I'm willing to say it. And he knows by saying it, there's going to be some people that push back against him. But I also think it's pretty cool that he's standing up for some younger anglers that maybe don't want to paint the target on and say something. Regardless, a great conversation, a great podcast. I thank Dakota. I thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Do all those things that help stroke the algorithm, whether it be on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. I thank you for tuning in. Keep the grow going. Have a great week. Enjoy being. And as always, Bob Cobb, take it away.
Please like, comment, and subscribe because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?